Welcome to the Why Not Us podcast.
Welcome to the Why Not Us podcast. I believe we're episode 17 at this point, G. Holy cow.
Yeah, crazy.
Once again, we're missing Houston. He is in Utah again for work. There is a chance later on that he may join in via audio if all things work. So if we get him in, then obviously he'll join us. But we've got the one and only G here with us as well. Glad to have you, Gordon. We got a lot to talk about today, my friend.
Yes, we do.
We've got a lot to talk about. So I wrote some notes down just to maybe kind of keep us on track, because I feel like one topic of this conversation could last 2 hours, another could last an hour, and we could go on forever on our thoughts. So let's start simply with the game. Let's start with the Texas Tech BYU game in Arlington. Let me hear your thoughts on the game overall.
Well, and I think we've talked about it all year, all three of us, about how we think Texas Tech is one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country. You can't go play a team like that and make those kind of mistakes. However, I think Texas Tech this time forced a couple of our mistakes, like the hit on Bear, the fumble. I thought the first drive of the game, I thought, holy cow, we're going to win this game. We go out there and drive 90 yards, go down, score a touchdown. Looked really good. Defense looked good. It's 13-7 halfway through the third quarter, and then it just disintegrated into nothingness. But that's when we made all of our mistakes. I still think that we're a better team than 34-7. I believe that's what it ended up, wasn't it? 34-7.
Yep.
I believe we're a better team than that, although I do believe Texas Tech this year is the better team after getting beat by them 2 times in a row, but I don't think they're that much better than what the score indicated. Bear Bachmeier's ankle injury early in the game, that really hampered our offense.
Right.
Just one of those deals. I guess it just wasn't meant to be this year. You get a fumble knockout for Texas Tech, and it bounces right back up to one of their offensive players on the run, and he runs for another 15, 20 yards. We had 2 or 3 balls that we should have picked, or we're in a position, and we don't. It's just we didn't get any breaks at all in that game. But, kudos to Texas Tech, and I hope they win the Natty.
Yeah. Okay, we might have Houston here. Let's see if this works. Houston, can you hear us?
Sweet.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Let's go.
We've live and recording with Hughes. Awesome.
How's the audio?
Audio sounds great.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Good.
So just to catch you up, Houston, Gordon was just giving us overall thoughts on the game. I wrote notes down to try to keep things in line, because I feel like with the emotions of everything from yesterday to today, we're going to be pretty heavy and could go on for hours on certain topics. So we're talking about the game first. Gordon gave us his rough thoughts on the game. Would love to hear what you have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the first thing that needs to be said before all of the fire Aaron Roderick and all this other crap that's going on, Texas Tech is quite possibly and almost certainly the best team in the country defensively. They might be the best team in the country, period. So
Amen.
I think that needs to be said before everybody's coming after an offensive coordinator's throat with a freshman quarterback, all of the above. I think it's just unlucky that we happen to have to play the best team in the country twice.
Mm-hmm.
And we will never get that respect, no matter what, even if Texas Tech wins the national championship. But I think they will. Watching Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, I think Texas Tech is by far and away the best team in the country, period.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, as far as the game goes, I just think not much we can do. It's just one of those times that you're playing 98 bowls and you're going to lose, and that's how it goes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so obviously we've said it on this podcast. I had the chance to go, and I'll start off by saying the environment was awesome. The venue was great. It was electric. I went to last year's game with Iowa State and Arizona State, and with the stadium being half full, it was still a cool experience and something that I'll remember. But as far as just the environment and the game and all that stuff, it just was mediocre. Like I'd been to high school games that were more electric than that. And so to have that flipped to where there quite literally was not an empty seat in the house was really, really cool. I will say I was a little surprised at the discrepancy. I know we are in Texas. I knew that, it wasn't that far from Lubbock, but my guess was that it was about 80-20, maybe 75-25 in favor of fans for Texas to BYU. But with that said, BYU fans were loud, rowdy for about 3/4 of that game. And so it was really cool to see that. And then, just like I said, the venue was great, all that stuff. The game, I'm going to reiterate kind of what you guys already said. After the first game, I felt like it was easy to point out specific uncharacteristic mistakes that could have helped us go into this game and give us a fair shot. My feelings after this game are strictly just we are just not as good as them. They caused a lot of that, and respect has to be given to Texas Tech on that front because it's deserved. It's hard to beat a team twice. It's hard to beat a team and beat them more the second time and make us look worse a second time. There are places that we can point to look inward and try to better ourselves. There's no question. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, you've got to give Texas Tech all the respect in the world. They just are a better team, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of my thoughts.
Yeah. And I was a little disappointed in our offensive line. However, you've got probably 4 defensive linemen for Texas Tech. They're going to be pros.
Mm-hmm.
So, there were times when our offensive line looked really good, like that first drive and spot plays throughout. The thing you can't do is what we did is we got behind and then we had to go for it on 4th down. We had to pass more, and then Texas Tech just came after us, and they're a great team, and that's their MO. If they get you down and you have to try to play catch up, then they're gonna beat you, and that's how they won the games they did this year, and that's what happened to us. And I don't want to throw any shade on BYU. So let's go back. Let's think about 3 or 4 months ago. Jake Retzloff is gone. We've got a new quarterback coming in. We don't know who it's going to be. All the predictors are saying we're going to be lucky to win 6 or 7 games this year. And we come out and we're 11-1 in the regular season. This is our 3rd year in the Big 12, 5-7, 11-2, and 11-2.
Mm-hmm.
The trajectory for BYU football is just skyrocketing. So I don't want to get caught up in the negativity of we got our butts kicked by Texas Tech. I want to focus on where this program's going and how good we really are. And I said before Houston got on, and Houston said it, and you've said it, I really believe Texas Tech is the best team in the country. I will be shocked if they don't win it all, and I am rooting for them to win it all. And it will help us get a little respect in the Big 12, but I don't think it clears that hurdle all the way. But man, they're a good team.
We'll have respect within the Big 12, but nationally, we're not going to get anything.
Yeah, when you've got the ESPN SEC network, all that stuff going on, it's ridiculous. But I think it was, what a great season. Anyway, I know I've kind of gone on a little bit.
I'm going to hop right back in just a minute.
Yep. So anyway, those are kind of my thoughts on that, Jace. Looks like Houston's going to reconnect with us here in just a second, but I don't know. I mean, you look at what we got coming back. So does this mean that we're going to have LJ Martin coming back next year and Keanu Tanavasa and some of these guys that were honored on senior day? Are they hungry now to come back and win a Big 12 championship? What is their draft stock like? I mean, if they're not going to go in the first 3 or 4 rounds of the draft, my take is you come back a la Chase Roberts.
Yep.
Last year, bring those guys back. I saw that LeMason Waller is already looking at the transfer portal, but you know what? That doesn't really scare me too bad, because look at the 2 Pula brothers that we just recruited. So I think some of these guys see the writing on the wall. They're like going, look at the talent level here. And when you upgrade in talent, some of the guys on the team, not saying LaMason Waller's a bad player, because he was a highly recruited receiver. Guys are going to leave because they see the writing on the wall that, hey, look at the talent coming in. I don't know. What's your thoughts on it, I guess?
Yeah, a lot to go into that. I kind of, to go back real quick, I had a thought on what Houston iterated, and there's two things I want to touch on. So, obviously BYU fans are hurt. We're looking to, point blame. And, the first place I've seen most BYU fans and, friends that I've got that are texting me is to go after A-Rod. And I used to fall under that umbrella. But one thing one comment that was made, and one thing I agree with very strongly, is if you're going to blame A-Rod for the 2 losses that you've experienced in the season, then you've got to credit A-Rod for the 11 that you've gotten.
Amen, brother.
And so I'll take 11 wins and 2 losses any given season. Like, obviously it's going to depend on who those losses are to and all that stuff, but especially in this particular season where we can all agree that Texas Tech is, in my opinion as well, the best team in the country, and you lose to that team. What these games do for us is it now sets the standard. Texas Tech is going to be the standard that we have to live up to in the years to come. And so we've got to prep to be able to beat a team like that. It's going to make us better. And so I'm not on the fire A-Rod train. I think A-Rod's done a phenomenal job this year, to what you said as well. Having a freshman quarterback starting with us, losing some key players to the transfer portal, banking on Hinckley Ropati being a part of the lineup and not getting that. Having Sione Moa go out. So you got one running back essentially that you're putting this on. With that said, there is some things I noticed about the game that I found fairly interesting. We're told that they want to let Bear go all out. They want to let him sling it. We avoided the middle so drastically. It was visibly, like, you could tell we just did not want to go across the middle. And I kid you not, Gordon, after they scored, I think it's when they went up 20, it was like 21-7, I think is when it was. I texted Houston and I said, the problem with this touchdown is now it's going to force us to throw it. We'd been hoping that we would open it up and throw it. Now we're forced to, and they're going to drop it back. And I said, and Bear's going to throw a pick over the middle. And literally the next play was that one where Bear threw it over the middle and Roberts, picked it off. Yeah. It literally happened the next play. We went across the middle on the opening drive on some small slants, but outside of that, it was just screens. It was runs. We were scared to throw it in the middle of the field for whatever reason. Obviously, the reasons Texas Tech's defense is incredible, right? But you could credit injury and all that stuff to it. But my point in saying that is, as we learned from this game, A-Rod's got to be able to adjust to that. You can't just run your inside zones and your screens all day long. So I can see why a lot of the frustration is going towards the fans. But at the end of the day, we couldn't do anything against them. Yeah. Bear had no time to throw. We couldn't run the ball. Screens were being read. Texas Tech's defense is fast, and they're big, and they hit hard. Like, they are just good. We just had no answer for them. So I can't put that on A-Rod.
No. So, and just to go down the road a little further with the point you're making, I agree 100%. Is, let's go back and say, you got a true freshman quarterback that he brought him along and did what he did with Bear Bachmeier this year to win 11 games when nobody was giving us a chance to even win 5 or 6. Right. But so here's the deal with Texas Tech's defense. You can't challenge the middle when they can only rush 3 or 4 and get pressure on you, because they're dropping their linebackers back to cover the middle, and they're dropping 2 deep safety. They are daring you to throw the short pass or throw the outs. They're like going, you're not going to go across the middle and you're not going to go deep, because we couldn't run the ball effectively enough throughout the whole game to make those linebackers come up to the line of scrimmage. So, you can blame A-Rod all you want, but when you can't run the ball, A-Rod is not out on the field running the ball and blocking the defensive line. Right. So criticize him all you want. He's not out on the field playing. There's only so much you can do as a play caller when your team cannot execute the plays out on the field. And then we got behind, and then the playbook went out the window. And I mean, even with Bear not getting hurt, I still don't know that we win this game. I don't think it's 34-7, but it's still probably going to be like 14-17 to 30, in my opinion. You know,
they're
Texas
just,
Tech is that
they're
good.
just that good.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say, and I do think that we need to touch on this, and it'll kind of transition us into the next topic, which is the college football playoff. But the other thing I'm seeing, not necessarily from BYU fans, but maybe a little bit, but more so from the outside looking in fans, is this whole concept that we would have won or been in a better position if Jake Retzlaff was our QB. I will die on the hill that at the beginning of this podcast, we said that Bear Bachmeier was going to be an upgrade in the quarterback room.
Yep.
And it is no shade or disrespect to Jake Retzlaff. I will be cheering for him in the playoffs. I want to see Tulane win. I think Jake's a great guy. I think he's a decent quarterback. However, I am standing by my position that Bear Bachmeier was an improvement in our quarterback room, and that last year we won games in spite of Jake. Yeah. And Jake has had an incredible season, but he's in a G5 league, and he still has lost 2 games, and I'm glad he made it to the playoffs. But this whole narrative that, you know, we're going to make Jake the victim and he's overcoming, you know, having to leave BYU because of the honor code, and he's this victim, and that it's almost like people are trying to paint the narrative that it's justice that BYU gets out and he gets in. And I couldn't disagree with I literally disagree with that so wholeheartedly. Bear has done phenomenal this year. He's an absolute stud. His ceiling is way higher, and I still think we are in the same position, if not worse, if we have Jake Retzlaff with us. What's your thoughts on that?
Amen, 100%, brother. I mean, after the game yesterday, Greg Wrubell and Hans Olsen actually got into a little argument on the radio about this very topic. And Greg Wrubell was adamant that we would not be in the position we were at with Jake Retzlaff. He went back specifically, talked about the Utah game and what Bear did on the run. He says there's no way with Jake in there that even happens.
Right.
And they, once they got to an understanding what they were saying, what Hans was arguing was more the fact that we would have been ranked probably 13th or 14th in the country.
Yep.
And we would have been up there. And that was his whole point. It wasn't that we would have been better with Jake. It's that we would have been ranked higher. And we probably would have been maybe 7 or 8 in the playoff rankings instead of where we're at. But
I can see that argument. There is an argument there.
But I don't think we're not 11-1 with Jake Retzlaff. And that was Greg's point. He says, and when they finally understood the hypothetical that was going on there. Yeah, I think Bear Bachmeier, definitely we won more games with him in there. So here's the other thing. People want to throw a shade on the coaches. We just signed the best recruiting class in BYU football history, number 20 in the nation. We just flipped 2 of the best receivers in Utah from committing to Utah to BYU. And you're telling me that it's because we have a crappy offensive coordinator?
Yeah, no.
It ain't happening.
And Darius Lassiter, I follow him on X, Twitter. He tweeted, he said at some point the offensive coordinator cannot be the first one to blame. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's an actual player who just got done playing for this offensive coordinator who is in the NFL and is telling fans to chill out for a little bit. Don't immediately go after A-Rod. And I support it. I support it 100%.
So to put a bow on this one, this reminds me of the Dr. Pepper Fanville commercial,
right?
Where the coach is on the hot seat and they go, dude, we just won the game. Yeah, but you only scored 24 points.
Right.
I'm like, come on, folks. Come on, BYU fans. You know, have a little reality check here. Texas Tech is a good team. We went 11-2. You know,
just
we don't put a
season.
coach on the hot seat because we're 11-2 and have one of the best seasons we've ever had in BYU football history. You know, get a grip.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say with regards to BYU and Tech, and I may have texted it out in the group chat, I don't know, but I'm a firm believer that this is going to become the new rivalry in Big 12.
I agree.
You've got Utah with, projections that Kyle Whittingham is going to be done. He hasn't officially announced it yet, but they're potentially going to have a new coach next year. Kansas State's going to have a new coach next year. Oklahoma State's going to have a new coach next year.
Iowa State,
is going to have a new coach next year. You've got Baylor, who's struggling, and if he's not out next year, he might be out the following year. So they're
Yep.
struggling. Cincinnati will be mid-tier. Houston will be mid-tier, but it's pretty clear that BYU and Texas Tech, especially with their recruiting class, I'm pretty sure BYU was 20th and Texas Tech was 19th.
Yep.
Their recruiting classes, their coaching extension, the money that they're going to have for NIL, it's going to be pretty clear that these two are going to separate each other from the rest of the pack in the Big 12. And BYU's got to learn how to beat this team because it's going to become the new rivalry. And this we'll probably see, in my opinion, if I'm making an early call before this season ends, we'll probably see it next season, Tech and BYU in the conference championship again.
Be shocked if it doesn't happen. So two thoughts real quick as we wrap this part of it up and move on. Remember when Wisconsin came into Provo and we looked like a JV team and they just pushed us all over the field?
Mm-hmm.
And Kalani said, that's the team we want to be. And then we went back to Wisconsin and we beat them.
Yep.
This is what I see happening with this right now is Texas Tech showed us this is the team that BYU wants to be. And now they have the standard. And I see us reaching that standard just like we did when Wisconsin thumped us. And then we'll make the improvements. We'll get the people we need in those places and we'll come back and, be a team to reckon with. And I think you're right. Texas Tech, BYU. And the last thought with that was, this is what Kalani was fighting for with his contract. He was fighting for more NIL, more money for his assistant coaches, more money for his staff, because he understands to build a championship program, he needs those resources to be like Texas Tech is in the conference. And so he wasn't fighting for his own personal salary as much as he was these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's huge, in my opinion, moving forward. And we can't lose sight of that will help us down the road. And I see BYU Texas Tech matchups down. It's it's good and bad, but I look at next year's schedule, or I've already looked ahead and looked at our schedule next year.
Mm-hmm.
We don't play Texas Tech next year. And you look at our conference schedule and gosh, if we bring everybody back, I'm saying we're going to be back in the championship game again.
There's no reason we shouldn't, just based on paper, right? Yeah. And what's happening with coaches and all that stuff. Texas Tech fans, I will say, were incredible. I've been to some games where the fans were not as nice, and Texas Tech fans, even the crazy ones that were intoxicated, were very actually respectful and wished us the best of luck, told us that we're getting ripped off by the College Football Playoff Committee, and they believe that we should have been a college football playoff team. And so that was a huge compliment from Texas Tech fans.
Yeah.
With that said, Gordon, college football playoffs.
Good segue. Good segue, Jace.
Came out this morning. I'll just go through it real quick. I know, but just for those listening, the 7 early ones, pretty standard. We expected this. You have Indiana at 1, Ohio State at 2, Georgia at 3, Texas Tech at 4. All of those 4 have a bye to start the bracket. Then you've got Oregon at 5, Ole Miss at 6, Texas A&M at 7, and Oklahoma at 8. Now, this is where things get really controversial, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about it. So at number 9, you have Alabama, who is a 3-loss team. At number 10, you have a Miami team, who is a 2-loss team and was not in their conference championship. And then you have the conference champions, Tulane and James Madison University at the 11 and 12 spot, with Notre Dame being the first team out and BYU being the second team out. Hit me with your thoughts. Where do we start on this?
Oh, there's so much to talk about here. Well, let's just talk about first. Let's start off with conference championship games supposedly not hurting a team.
Mm-hmm.
So Ohio State loses to Indiana. Ohio State drops a spot. BYU loses to Texas Tech. We drop a spot. Alabama gets absolutely crushed by Georgia, and they hold at number 9.
Alabama had -3 rushing
yards rushing in that game. Their loss was worse than ours to Texas Tech. So you start there. Then you jump a Miami into the playoff, who wasn't in the playoff, over both BYU and Notre Dame, which Notre Dame should have been out already. We've had that argument for the last 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. But how do you jump Miami over BYU when they're sitting there doing nothing? And here's my thought on it. is everybody gets a trophy mentality. Well, we got to have an ACC team in the playoff, so we got to put Miami in there. So we at least have one ACC team in there. It really looked like just placating. And all love to Tulane and James Madison. Playoff format's got to change. Those two teams are going to get, as much as I'd love to see them win, they are going to get crushed in this playoff. Right. So we do not have the 12 best teams in there. We've got 3 teams I can think of, Miami, James Madison, Tulane, that were sympathy placements in there. And when you say college football playoff committee, there's your problem right there. We need to get rid of a committee. We need to go by metrics. We need to have 5 or 6 metrics that you go by: strength of record, strength of schedule, defensive ranking, offensive ranking, obviously wins and losses and all that play into it. And you get rid of the freaking committee, and this needs to be 16 or 24 team filled. And I'm really not opposed to what Kalani said, get rid of your conference championship games, because you go to 24 teams and you just start your playoff, because Texas Tech and BYU would have been in there. Texas Tech beat us, so they're the conference champ. Mm-hmm. Why are we playing these games if one league gets punished and another one doesn't? And you get a Notre Dame and a Miami that sit home twiddling their thumbs. Oklahoma, that's, go on down the list. Ole Miss, Oregon, they don't play and they get rewarded for not playing. Something's wrong with that format. It's got to change.
Yeah, I remember texting prior to this show airing this morning, and I said, if Miami makes it, college football's lost. And I couldn't when they had the audacity to put Miami in and to try to justify it and watch them play ring around the rosy in their rules, it made me sick. And if you were to I made a tweet. I'll say this to start. I made a tweet earlier today, and I was like, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone, because on one end of the field, being a huge BYU fan, watching us all year and seeing how we got destroyed by Texas Tech twice, there is a part of me that's like, we don't deserve to be in the playoffs. We're just going to get rolled. But then you've got the fact that was, in theory, the best team in the country, and we lost to them twice. So we have a chance to go prove ourselves to get in the playoff, to either get a rematch with them or somebody else, because I do think everybody else in that playoff bracket we can compete with. Oh, yeah. But part of me is just like, oh my gosh, we got destroyed twice. Do we even belong? But then if you were to remove my feelings towards BYU, if you were to remove the logo of BYU and the logo of the Big 12 and use these metrics that ESPN is throwing out there on what the committee is using, BYU is in 100% of the time. There is no wishy-washy things about it. But instead, what they did is they took a team who did not make it to their conference championship, who lost out to a team that made their conference championship with 5 losses.
Yep.
5. And you sat home and watched that game because you weren't good enough to get in, but now you're all of a sudden good enough to be in the top 12.
Yep.
After not playing, over a team that did play and was 11-1 prior to that. There's even an argument for Notre Dame over Miami, in my opinion, because yes, they have the head-to-head and all that stuff. Long story short, Miami and Notre Dame shouldn't have been in the conversation. We can agree on that.
Amen.
But to have Bama in, we knew that was going to happen. They did that last week. They set themselves up for it last week. And they essentially did it with us as well, because they can say, oh, you're 11th. You weren't in the first place. And so we're not technically punishing you for the loss, but we're technically punishing you for the loss. Yeah. It's just so it's so biased. It's so clearly biased. It's sad that they have even the audacity to do it. And to your point, there's fixes, hopefully, that they come out with, because there is a lot of talk this year.
Yes, there is,
from the country. Big names, RG3, Dave Portnoy, like they're like, this is ridiculous. You got ESPN people saying it's ridiculous. But are we going to get away from the bias, G? Like, are they just going to keep finding reasons and excuses for us to not be included?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. So you change the format and you do all this other stuff. I think you can get rid of a little bit of the bias if you get rid of the committee. To me, that's the biggest mistake right there. Is you've got a committee and they come out and say, "Well, we were in discussion." Well, that's the problem. You were in discussion with your opinions. The logos won out. I think you can take some of that out of there, but with all that being said, you're still doing rankings are still human based. Football needs something like Ken Palm in basketball. That's a great metrics. It's not the end all be all, but it would be one of those. I like I said earlier, the strength of schedule, strength of record, your defensive, offensive rankings. I think you could come up with 6 categories that you could probably come really dang close to having the best teams in there without anybody sitting in a room talking about who's in and who's out. I just, you take all that out of it. So that way you might take some of the bias out. I don't know. I mean, but I still think it slides in there because it's all money. I mean, I used to have great respect for Kirk Herbstreit. I think now I have no respect for him.
It's blatant.
He's been bought off by the SEC money. He's a SEC talking head. All he is a figurehead for the SEC. So Kirk Herbstreit can shut up.
And Nick Saban. I mean,
Nick Saban,
same deal.
Same deal.
The reason it's so sickening, and Kalani has mentioned this in his post, they won't even put BYU on the graphic. They won't even say their name. The fact that they can put things on the graphic like the bubble, teams that are just on the outside, and they go 9, 10, and 12.
Yep.
And they just leave the 11th team out there. They don't show their resume, because if you show the resume, you show the world that BYU should be in.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre to me. So that brings me to my next question is, did we do anything this year that hurt our chances, or was this always going to be the play? If we were to beat teams by 20 plus points like Texas Tech, I know this is hypothetical,
right?
But is there something that we can learn from this as a team that the coaches go back and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we got to change something.
I don't know. So here's the deal. And they've said this, a couple of years ago that, and they took out, supposedly the committee was not supposed to look at the scores, the blowouts. That was not supposed to be part of the criteria, supposed to be not part of the criteria. The thing that I hate about when you start looking about the style points and running the score up is that's the problem. You take all the sportsmanship and all the ethics out of the game, and you're going to go out there and, leave no doubt, Herman, we're going to run this baby up. That's not what sports is about. And so, and BYU is not about that. I don't know. That's a great question, Jace. I mean, even, if we beat a couple teams by another touchdown or 2, I don't think this year it mattered. The committee saw what happened against Texas Tech. They don't respect the Big 12. This was their excuse to drop BYU. I mean, we dropped 5 freaking spots on that loss.
Yep.
And they set this up for, like we said, we've been saying this for 3 or 4 weeks. They set this up 4 weeks ago. You drop BYU down, you move Alabama up, and then when the final rankings come out, you can say, well, gee, gosh, if you would have won your conference championship game, then, you would have been in. And I love their graphic that says if we win, we had a 99.8%. What do you mean a 99.8% chance? If we win, we're in. You guys are, I mean, the bias is just dripping all over it. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In the same breath, they say win your conference championship and you're in.
Yeah.
While at the same time telling Alabama, it's okay that you didn't win and you got destroyed and you had -3 rushing yards. The conference championship doesn't matter. It's absolutely crazy.
And 2 more points to point out here. That's the first 3-loss team that's been in the college football playoff. BYU is the first 11-win team that has not.
And I'll give you
right there.
Yeah, I'll give you a secret to the SEC's success. You ready for this? You start the season off, we'll do a triangle, okay? So you start the season off ranking the SEC the highest. Half of their conference is ranked in the top 25. So the first couple games where terrible teams play each other, those teams start to look really good, and that's the second tier. You play half-ass team, excuse my French, half-butt teams, and it looks a lot better on the resume because they started the season off ranked in the top 25. the teams that have a couple of those wins start to separate, and they rank them really high because they've got really good wins, even though they lose to a Florida State team who's not even going to make a freaking bowl game, and it don't matter because they beat the top 15 team in the country at the time that they played, even though that top 15 team only won 3 games at the end of the year. Then you get to the last part of the triangle, which is at the very end, and you have you've got the 3 or 4 teams that haven't played anybody in theory, but at the time they played, they were in the top. That is the secret to the SEC's success and why there is this blind perspective that the SEC is a powerhouse conference when in my opinion, and I think many others, they are not. The only reason that the SEC is perceived as this powerhouse conference is because the pre-rankings, the preseason rankings make it so. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely pathetic. The SEC has 3, maybe 4 good teams, if that. But so does every other conference. And the bias has got to go. It's got to go. I don't know how it's changed because you expand it to a 16-team playoff. You're just asking for more SEC teams to be in there. And that's what I fear, is they're always going to find a reason to keep the SEC in there because of that perception that these teams are just better than everybody else. The Big Ten is awful and terrible. The SEC is overrated by a drastic amount. There's some good teams in there. There's no question. Georgia is a very good team. I believe that. I think Ole Miss, prior to Lane Kiffin leaving, was a really good team. I believe that. Texas, even though they've lost 3 games, is a pretty good team. I'm not taking that away from those teams, but the perception is just off because of how much bias there is from the start of the season till the end of the season.
And then 2 things to add to that is so that you go to their schedule, go to the end of the year, they play a patty cake team in the 2nd or 3rd week to the end of the season and have a bye week. So they're literally taking like 2 weeks off at the end of the season, and their teams aren't going to lose. And they play only 8 conference games instead of 9, which is going to change next year. But then you're comparing yourself against yourself. How can you do that? You're not comparing yourself against the Big 12, the ACC, or the Big 10. You're just saying, well, we're the best league in the country. And so when we beat one of our own, then that's a great win. It doesn't make sense, and it's not logical. And it's been like that for years. I will say NIL has got the SEC shaking in their boots, and that's why they're doing what they're doing right now. They see their kingdom crumbling around them because the parity in the college football world is happening right in front of their eyes. And they're trying to salvage their little kingdom of billions of dollars of money that they're losing because their teams suck, but they're defending them. And you got ESPN paid off to defend them. So I don't know. I mean, I hopefully some changes happen. You just got to get all the human bias out of it and go to more metrics, and you got to have a balance, but you cannot have a college football playoff committee sitting in a room deciding who goes and who doesn't. I mean, we do not have a true college football playoff this year. I don't know that we've ever had one.
It's the good boys club. That's what it boils down to. Because again, the whole argument is if you take the logo away, BYU's in 100% of the time. 100%.
Yep. And the best analogy that I can think of, and this probably isn't mine, I probably heard it somewhere else, it's like the popular boys go to the prom.
Yep.
And those that aren't popular stay home. It has nothing to do with who you are or your team. It has everything to do with your logo, and you're the popular boy, so let's put you in.
Yeah, crazy. And ironic that some of the top SEC teams just happen to come out of the Big 12. And they were good prior to being a part of the SEC. The SEC did not make them good.
No.
So I find that very ironic as well.
Yep.
So at the conclusion of that, the college football playoff committee sucks. It's awful. I'm going to watch probably out of spite and just because I love football, but half of me wanted to boycott and not watch. I hope that a lot of people do. I hope the viewership sucks and forces these people to make a change. Hopefully we have a change going into next year. Hopefully, whether that's 16-team playoff, 14-team playoff, whatever the case may be, some sort of play-in games. I don't know if they're going to do away with conference championships. That's going to be interesting.
Yep.
That is going to lead us to our next topic as well on the biggest question that I think is going to pop up this year is how valuable are bowl games going to be, and are those going to be a thing moving forward? Because BYU got invited to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is a great bowl, very prestigious, could bring in couple $1 million to the team and the program, which is huge. Everybody wants that. That's the benefit of playing in a bowl game, is to not only get another game to play to prove yourself, but you could also bring some money into the conference and the program to help you guys move forward. That can go to facilities, that can go to equipment, that can go to players like that. That's what this money does. It's a big deal. And there's been a lot of teams that have opted out of the chance to play in a bowl game this year, namely Notre Dame, who was projected to play BYU in that Pop-Tart Bowl and decided that they are not going to accept the invite to a bowl game. So very interesting topic of conversation. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are this. Notre Dame's an independent, but with that being said, I'm sure their name was on some of these bowl agreements. Let's use two teams that I'm aware of in the Big 12 that opted out, Iowa State and K-State, because they don't have coaches, and the Big 12 fined them $500,000 apiece, saying you had a contractual obligation to represent us in these bowl games and you're backing out, and they fined them Now, Notre Dame's independent.
Yeah, they don't have that.
To me, it's this. I mean, and I've not been a Notre Dame fan ever. So here's my lot of problems with that. You're destroying the other bowl games. So, I mean, the bowl games, you explained exactly what they're about. I mean, it's an opportunity. The coaches, BYU coaching staff said it's another month to practice. It really helps build your program because you get that, extra month of practice that you don't get otherwise. So you've got all that. Are you really about building a program, or are you going to be in Notre Dame and got to be careful what I say here because I almost said something else, but what are you saying about your program? You're not going to play BYU in a bowl game. My knee-jerk reaction to that is that's because you would have got your butt kicked. You're not the team you think you are. We're not a 2-10 ACC team, and that's the only teams you can beat. And so you're going to opt out and say, we're going to stay home. So, I don't know. I got all kinds of things to say about that Notre Dame. They have been afraid to play us for 5 or 6 years. They wouldn't play us in Provo, wouldn't return the game, end up playing in Vegas. Quite honestly, I don't think they would have played anybody in the Pop-Tarts Bowl because they don't want to be exposed for the average team that they are this year. That's my opinion. If you're going to do the bowl games and you've got a contract, you honor your contract, just like the Big 12 is fining those schools for not doing it. I don't care if you don't have a head coach or not. You're contractually obligated to be in those bowl games, and the conference gets money for those bowl games. Rightly so, they should be fined. But yeah, that's a tough one because the bowl games really, I mean, besides developing the players, and you do bring money in revenue if you get a lucrative bowl game. Some of the lesser bowl games, it's a kind of a break-even thing, but it is a reward for the team too. I mean, you get to take your team. If you go to a nice bowl game somewhere, it's pretty cool. I don't know. What's your thoughts on it?
I've kind of put myself in a devil's advocate mode here because my initial reaction is the same as yours. Like it's another time to play. It's another time to showcase your team. It's stupid that Notre Dame doesn't want to do that. Playing devil's advocate for a sec, because this has been a long time coming, and I'm surprised we're seeing it come to fruition as heavily as we are, with multiple teams opting out the way that they are. It started with NIL of players starting to opt out and not play in the bowl games to protect themselves, which diminished the value of that bowl game. It diminished the validity of it. Like if you won, it had an asterisk to it because so-and-so team didn't have their star players, right? And if I'm Notre Dame, or even I'm going to throw in BYU, if I'm BYU, from the college football committee and resume builder perspective, what good does going and playing Georgia Tech do for us? And devil's advocate wise, I don't think it does anything, because if you go win and dominate like we did against Colorado, for example, last year, the committee's never going to look at that game and be like, oh, look what they did to Colorado, because you just don't know what that team's going to do the next season. Colorado's a perfect example. They went and that game, that Alamo game, did nothing for us. We went and won, and we were able to hype ourselves up and say good job, and we were going into the season, the next part of the season, with our heads held high, which is great. But if you go and beat Georgia Tech, it adds no validity to your resume. you're running the risk of players getting hurt, like all this other stuff. If you go and lose to Georgia Tech, then your season's kind of diminished because you're looked at as a failure and that it was all shambles anyways, and you lose to a mid to low tier ACC team. And so there's a lot more risk if you're BYU to going and playing Georgia Tech than there is reward. And I think Notre Dame felt that. Notre Dame going and playing BYU does absolutely nothing for them if they win. Zero. But it does everything for them if they lose. They're called frauds. Their schedule is a bunch of bull crap. They end the season on a terrible note versus ending a season on a 10-win streak, which they can then use to say, hey, we went 10-0 last year. Our streak is still continuing. And 3 or 4 or 5 games into the next year's season, they're like, we've won 15 games in a row. And so I can see why they're doing it. I don't agree with it, but I also am like, what good is this bowl game for BYU? You're going and playing to give ESPN and Disney more views, and you're literally biting the hand that just screwed you. Why would you want to go do that? And the only thing I can think of is the money, is to bring in the extra income for your squad.
Well, and so the other thing is, Jace, like I said earlier, you get 3 more weeks of practice.
Mm-hmm.
That's longer than your freaking fall camp is.
That's
true. Just as long as spring ball. So when you're developing a program and a team, that practice time, if you're using it for development, player development, it's huge. And that's why teams are successful and go to those if it's used correctly. It springboards and it just kind of that multiplier effect. So for me, that's the biggest reason you go is you literally get another month of practice, because as soon as you're done so let's say Notre Dame's done, they cannot do anything with that team until March. Spring ball, that's it. And then you're done after spring ball, after your 3 or 4 weeks of spring ball, and then you're not hitting it back again until July. So I think that to me would be the biggest reason to do that. Now, however, I agree with some of what you're saying, but I think if you're developing your program, that would be the focus on it. The money's always nice. Everybody can always use the money. But the thing that's, I think, hurt the bowl games more than anything else is there's just too darn many of them. You need to get rid of about 20 of the bowl games because, it's the who cares bowl. Nobody cares. You get 50 people in the stands watching them.
Idaho Potato Bowl.
Exactly. 6 wins qualifies you for a bowl. Well, that's awesome. How about we get rid of about 20 to 25 of those bowl games and you have to win 8 games to get into a bowl?
Yeah. Then that can help with resume builders too, because then you can say, you beat a bowl eligible team, and a bowl eligible team equals 8 wins. That's a great idea. I like that.
Yeah, I just think we've got too many bowl games, and it's just I've thought there's been too many bowl games for a lot of years because you just and then you get a 5 and 6 team that gets in because a 6 and 6 team opts out, and those 6 and 6 and 5 and 6 teams should be jumping all over an opportunity to continue to develop.
Right.
I get your point, what you're saying with Notre Dame, but I just, if you don't want to play in a bowl game, get your name off the list of contractually saying you will be playing in that bowl game if you're invited. And so don't put your name on the list. Just say, if we don't make the college football playoff, we're not playing. Good. Take them off the list.
And there's some that are asking for these teams to be punished to the point of not having any sort of post-game opportunities next year. Doubt that'll happen, but yeah, if you're going to opt out of an opportunity to help grow the football game of itself, you're willing to spit on the opportunity to go and play another game. What good are you? And I see that point. It's an interesting one, and I think it's going to expose, and we'll probably see some changes towards bowl games as well, because there is a fair amount of teams that are just saying, nah, we're good. Yeah. You got a Kansas State that would rather pay a $500,000 fine than go make money at a bowl by just being there. Like literally by just playing in it, you are bringing income to your program. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Outside of just you're calling the season done. Like you're just like, I'm done.
Yeah. So what'll be interesting to see is how this plays out next year, not so much in bowl games, but what do those programs look like when they start the season next year? Are they behind from other teams? Are they not? Does it make a big difference? I don't know. I think part of it would, you solve part of this issue by going to a 24-team playoff. I used to think 24 sounded like too much, but I don't think so. You look at, if you take 24 teams in there, and I don't care if there's 6 SEC teams in there or not out of the 24, you're going to get a true champion out of that, and it's going to be compelling. It'd be fun to watch. I'm with you. If there's 2 SEC teams playing, I'm not watching. I already looked at the schedule there, and it's
no point.
Oklahoma is playing another SEC team.
Yeah, Oklahoma and Alabama.
I'm like, who cares?
Yeah,
that's going to be a worthless, crappy slugfest. Neither team's offense is worth crap. That's not entertainment. I don't want to watch that. Will I tune in to see Texas Tech? Heavens, yes. I'll watch anytime Texas Tech is playing. I'm going to root them on. I'll be there. I'd love to see the underdog, James Madison and Tulane, but they're going to get crushed. I'm sorry. They don't. Old Miss already crushed Tulane earlier this year, and it'll happen again. They just don't match up.
Yeah.
So,
to that point, if you went to a 24-team, playoff, a lot of the reason that they've been hesitant in doing that, from what I've heard, is just running the risk of injuries from playing too many games and all of that stuff. So maybe throw something like this out there where you eliminate non-conference games. So you shorten the schedule, you just play conference games, and then you have your play-in games towards the end of that, and that gets you into the playoff, and then you have the playoffs. Do you see benefit to that, or is there still going to be value in these non-conference games? Because that's another point of topic that's trying to transition, because it's not being valued specifically in Texas. In Texas's case, Sarkisian made the comments on this. Why should Texas schedule an Ohio State when they're out of conference, run the risk of losing to them if that's going to hurt them in their chances to get into the playoffs? So do you lessen it, have no out of conference games, and just play in conference?
So, I mean, I love Sark, but Sark, you're not in there because you lost to a crappy Florida team.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with playing Ohio State. So I like the non-conference. So here's the reason I like the non-conference, Jace, is because then that's the only time you're going to play somebody out of your conference. And that's where you get some comparison between the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the SEC, because you play those cross-conference games and you get a little comparison to see where you're at. And, if one conference is better than the other, then you can kind of judge yourself, kind of like BYU's done with Wisconsin and Tennessee. By the way, we went to Tennessee and beat them, SEC. I like that. So I was not a big fan of this at first, but the more I think about it, so if you go to a 2014 playoff, if you eliminate the conference championship game, this weekend would have been the first round of the playoff.
So it shortens the schedule. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're starting right now, and you're only going to have, I don't think you really have teams playing more than they already that much. Well, you wouldn't play any more than you already are, because you go 24 teams the first round. You're for this weekend, you would have been down to 12.
Mm-hmm.
You go next weekend, you're down to 6. Then you go the next weekend. If you've got 24, you'd have to have some buys in there to make it play out right. But I still think you're playing the championship game about the same week you would be playing it now, and playing about the same amount of games. And at first blush, when I heard Kalani say that, I'm like, oh, no, play the championship game. It doesn't mean anything now.
Right.
If you won your conference outright, it doesn't. If you win your conference outright during the regular season, you're the conference champ. Why have to play another game? These mega conferences have destroyed college football. 18 teams in the SEC, 16 in the Big 12. You're not getting a true champion anyway, because you're only playing a third of the teams in your conference.
Right.
It's really not a true representation. So let's just say you go that route, and the FCS has done this forever.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't the FBS? If it's really about injury, then why? You've got better athletes, better training staff, better everything at the FBS level than the FCS. If they can do it, why can't you with better? Everything's better.
Yeah.
The injury thing, I don't buy.
I think Nick Saban said this, if I remember right, said using the NFL model is probably something we should look at. The NFL does it.
Yep.
Like you said, the FCS does it.
Yep.
They've got a good working model, and it creates a lot of hype. And ultimately, in my opinion, the NFL, there's never a question on who should be in or who should be out in those playoffs, ever. I'm an avid NFL watcher. And there's never a question on who should be in the Super Bowl, because you've won your way there.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that's the same case in the FCS. And so I agree with you. Expanding the playoff, whatever that may look like, is just going to help determine who actually should win and who actually is the best team in the country. And then to what you said to end that, Texas Tech, I'm cheering for them like crazy. I think they got a great route to the national championship. They would play the winner of James Madison and Oregon, which I think they could throttle either one of those teams.
They will crush either one of those teams.
And assuming that Indiana beats Alabama or Oklahoma, I don't really care who's in that matchup either. They will destroy whoever one of those three teams gets in, and they'll most likely play against Georgia or Ohio State in the Natty. Yep. And I think that Texas Tech's going to win the whole thing. They're phenomenal. So,
yeah, I agree.
Go Tech.
Go Tech.
So lastly, we're going to transition real quick and just highlight basketball, go over the game on Wednesday of this week and who we got going into this coming week. So BYU played Cal Baptist on Wednesday and like we expected, absolutely destroyed them. Thoughts or anything you remember from that game? I know it was a little bit ago. We're recording this on Sunday, but.
So, Cal Baptist coming in was 7-1. They had they were like 72 in is it the Ken Palm? What ranking they use? It might not be the Ken Palm, but the where they do the whether it's a quad 1, quad 2. They came in at 72, which actually puts them in a quad 2. So, you say we should have beat them like that, but that was not a bad team. They had just beat was it Oregon or Oregon State?
I don't know for sure.
Yeah, and they played Utah. I didn't see what happened with Utah. They played Utah last night. So this team's good. I mean, Cal Baptist was not a bad team, and we made him look silly. We made him look like a JV squad. So, and kudos to our team. A good game. The team, Kevin Young's comment, we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, that something in halftime or the second half clicked with these players, and also now they're playing more as a team. He says it was like the light bulb turned on, and you're seeing it.
Oh, it's awesome to see. And that's what we were worried about when we weren't seeing it for the first couple games of the season. Now we are seeing it, and confidence as a fan is through the roof. They're just looking really, really good. I did remember mentioning to Houston, our bench struggles when it's the entire bench in. When the bench is incorporated with starters, our bench is really good. But obviously in this game, there's plenty of time for bench players, and they did struggle a little bit, got into a lot of foul trouble and different things like that. But overall, great win. Ending score was 91-60. Going into this week on Tuesday, I believe it's at
Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden against Clemson. At 4:30. So we got an ACC team. That should be a good game. Clemson's not terrible. They're not great, but should be a really good matchup, and it's cool to see us play in Madison Square Garden. I love all these venues we're playing in.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's so cool.
It is awesome.
So that game's on at 4:30 our time, and that's Mountain Standard Time. And then on Saturday, we play UC Riverside, which should also be a pretty good, easy game. So a lot of these games I think are going to be really good, because I think we've got Clemson, UC Riverside, Pacific, ACU, whoever that is, and Eastern Washington. So we got 5 more games left before conference play, and then the gauntlet starts. You've got Kansas State, you've got Arizona State, you've got Utah, you've got all these teams that are coming in and that we're going to, and it's going to be a gauntlet of a schedule, with the Big 12 being probably, in my opinion, the best conference in basketball.
Oh, by far. So, Brett Yermark's comment was that the Big 12 is the second best basketball league in the country, just behind the NBA.
I love that. It's true though. Like, the Big 12 is incredible. So it's good. It's good to see us mix and match, because we've had some cupcake teams, and then we've had some really good teams. I would consider this Clemson team really good. They're definitely not a cupcake, but we've got some cupcakes coming up, which will help us get into rhythm, establishing that team camaraderie. And I think overall it's going to be really good for us as we go into Big 12 play.
Yep, and that's what you need over a Christmas break. And come back after Christmas break ready to hit the conference games.
Yeah.
Looking
Good
good.
times. Yeah,
You
good
bet.
times. So that's all we got for you today, fam. Lots to digest. I think the emotions are still raw. We're recording this on
Yep.
Sunday. We're obviously very upset with the college football playoff committee.
Yes, we are.
The loss in the fashion that we lost is still hurting us. But at the end of the day, I don't think any of us expected going into this season being where we're at. And the
No.
BYU Cougars football team has exceeded expectations. We got our coach back. We're going to retain probably the majority of our assistant coaching staff, our coordinators, because of what Kalani did. We're getting incredible recruits. We're going to have some players coming back next year. I think that we're just on the up, regardless of the rest of the season. Like, glad we're going to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. That's great. But going into next season, we are going to be really, really, really good.
Yeah, agree 100% with everything you just said.
So, all right. Well, check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I think we're almost to 50 subscribers, which is more than what we expected when we started this whole thing. So thank you to all those who have subscribed.
Yes.
We'd love to cross that 50 mark and start shooting for 100. So follow us on socials as well. We appreciate all the support. As always, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.